I had people ask for advice. If you submitted a question, don't be scared. It's all fully anonymous. So what I did, because I'm crazy, what I was gonna do is I was gonna like make graphics, but I felt like that wasn't as cool. So I made little cue cards, and they're very cute. This took 4 hours. If anything I say resonates with you, feel free and clip. Any of these cue cards is something you need to like tell yourself later, screenshot it. Okay, we're starting off with this one to start off a bit light. Should I confess my feelings for my friend or move on? This person says, confess your feelings to your crush or friend, or should I save the friendship and move on to someone else? I feel like this is the question old as time. From my lived experience, I've had many crushes on friends. Because there's been like studies done to where you're more likely to feel romantic attraction to somebody once you know them on an emotional level. So it makes sense why a lot of people, quote unquote, fall in love with their best friends. There's also been studies done to where a lot of men will fall in love for their female best friends because it's not often they can be like emotionally vulnerable with somebody. And in turn, they associate love with vulnerability. So there's a lot of levels to it. Just in general, you should only really confess to somebody if you 100% feel and can assume that they feel the same for you, because I think when you confess to somebody, it does put a lot of pressure onto them. And especially if it's a friend. If you feel like they don't feel the same, then don't say anything. Get over it. But if you feel that they might, go for it. It might work out. I don't think you should not confess in the worries that will ruin the friendship. Because obviously, if you do confess and they don't feel the same, it's obviously going to change the dynamic. But if that person isn't willing to look past it and still value your friendship, then they probably wouldn't have been your friend in the long term anyway. It's the worst when they don't feel the same. I mean, I think it's still better to know for sure than to cling on to that feeling, right? Because if you wallow in that unknown or that uncertainty for too long, you're kind of preventing yourself from possibly seeing other people who might genuinely be interested in you. So don't get hung up on one person, especially if you haven't gone out. I can understand if you can't get over an ex, but that's because there was feelings, right? But if you're hung up on a crush, it's childish to an extent. I'm saying this as I'm 23. As a 23-year-old, okay? If you were like in your teens or your very early 20s like me, you're gonna look back on your crushes and be like, that's so silly of me. It might feel like it's real, but if there's no mutual feeling, then it's not as real as it could be with somebody else. But the feelings you have for a crush is drastically different than the feelings you would have towards someone who actually for sure likes you, right? What if their parents don't like me? Oh, this person said, what would you do if the person that you're dating has parents that dislike you? You know, the way I see it, you're not dating their parents. So they don't necessarily need to like you. They probably will like you over time. As long as you know that you're doing your best and you aren't harming your partner. Because the parents are just evaluating you off of assumptions. And they're evaluating you off of probably what your partner has told them. So it makes sense that they'd like not like you or be opposed to the idea of you dating their child. So I would say, don't take it too personally. Like, it's obviously gonna bother you for a while, but that's normal. It's different if you're like a bad person and then like the parents' concerns are like valid. Okay, that's different. If you're an asshole, then yeah. As long as you know what you're doing is good, and as long as you know you're treating your partner fine, screw them. You don't need to go over for dinner. I have a crush, but I don't know if they're gay. I feel like most queer person has gone through this at some point. Look how long this question was. This person's psychotic. I just wanted one sentence, man. Okay, let's read this out. So my situation is, that I have a crush on this person, but I don't know if they're gauge. They actually put gauge in their message. I don't even know my sexuality yet. I've known for the past 2 years that I'm probably not straight, but since I'd only had crushes on fictional characters or celebs with the same gender, I decided I was probably straight. But then, I met this person and literally, it's all the things I'm attracted to. Except that they're not POC, but we love our Caucasian kings and queens, IG, close parentheses. This is like a diary entry. And to make matters more confusing, they've done some things that make me think they are LGBT. Like one time, this person of the opposite gender yelled, "F you," at them, and they said, "I wouldn't do that, you're not my type," which had me all sorts of confused. So basically, can you give me advice on situations like this, please? Crying emoji. There are obviously some, like, clear-cut signs that I feel like most everyone has a consensus about when it comes to, like, seeing somebody and kind of subtly knowing that they're queer. I feel like it's cliche in every queer person's experience to like or have a crush on a straight person. But that's because you probably like them emotionally, right? And that's fine, that's normal. But you also have to come to the understanding that if they aren't attracted to you, then it's not gonna work. You can't make somebody queer. You can't make somebody love you if they aren't physically attracted to you, because people want different things. I think the only real way to know is if they pursue somebody else, right? So I would say befriend them more so. I don't know if this is somebody you just like admire, or if this is somebody you like kind of know, or like an acquaintance. I assume this is high school, because you're talking like this is a mother diary entry. I would honestly say, assuming you're in school, I would say wait it out. Because you don't know, like, how dynamics will change once you're out of school, or if this is, like, college or whatever, you don't know how things will change once you're out of college and you don't see each other as much. If they are your friend, I think the conversation of being like, "Hey, do you have anybody that you like?" and see what they say. And then when they ask you back, be like, "Oh, there's this one person I like." And then when they ask who, you say, "You." What do you do if you feel jealousy? This was an interesting question, because there's so many levels to what jealousy is. Because to me, jealousy is related to trauma in the sense of either you were wronged in the past or you're scared of being wronged. Feeling jealousy is fine. You just cannot let it interfere with your relationship to where it's at a point where it's unhealthy. If it's related to you having trauma from a previous relationship or like parental figures or role models, for me personally, I never wanted to entertain the idea of feeling jealous. Because to me, if I am feeling jealous, then it's something that I need to work on. Because the way I view a relationship, I put my full faith and belief into that person. So if they cheat on me, it's their fault, not mine. I should not be blaming myself. If my partner wants to talk to somebody else, not romantically, mind you, like just talking casually, they have the right to do so because they need to have a separate identity from myself, right? You can't be overly bearing or too controlling when it comes to letting your partner talk or communicate with whoever they want to. You should not be too controlling in that sense. So I think if you are experiencing this, you need to identify if it's based on your trauma or your own sense of doubt. And either way, that needs to be communicated with your partner. Obviously, it would have to be at a point to where you feel more comfortable with them. For example, if it's based off of trauma, you can pull them aside, be like, "Hey, you know, I experienced this and it makes me feel this way. If I act this way, try to be understanding, and if I ever push any of your boundaries, please make sure to communicate." I got confessed to, but I don't feel the same. Now, hashtag can't relate. What do you do if someone confesses their feelings, but you don't feel the same way? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. They put 5 question marks. I think the right answer is, if you don't feel the same, don't lead them on. Don't go out with them. Don't feel like you can fall in love with this person. It's different if you're like younger, because then I think it's fine to kind of like experience going on a date or whatever. Don't lie and say, ooh, I like you too, because that's not true. And you don't want to build a relationship off of the premise of they're just pinning for you, but you don't feel the same for them to the same degree. It's kind of hard for me to relate to this because I can easily reject someone if if it ever happened, because I need to have that emotional attachment before I can like seriously pursue anyone, because I'm not the type of person who wants something casual, you know? Is arguing a lot normal? This one I had like a concrete answer, and then I saw a TikTok this morning from this like couples therapist, and she was talking about how a lot of people's like couples arguments are caused by like their personal traumas and triggers. And she brought up the example, like the girlfriend getting mad at the boyfriend for not washing the dishes, and then it would cause an argument because she felt like he was breaking her trust by not doing his task, and then in turn the boyfriend inherently would feel like he was a failure, and it was possibly from like unresolved trauma from like him not having a lot of self-worth. There's a line, obviously, with how arguments are conducted. If your partner is getting violent or too name-calling, then I feel like that is too toxic, right? I think it comes from not being able to communicate effectively. And when I mean effectively, I mean the format, I learned this in therapy. When you do blank, so an action, it makes me feel blank because blank. When you use that format, it basically explains to your partner how their actions affect how you feel in a way that kind of forces them to empathize with you and truly understand what you're thinking and feeling. That type of like discussion needs to happen before the argument gets more heated. Because I think it's very easy to be like name-calling or accusatory and bring up like past grudges in an argument, because all those three are things that weren't properly communicated in the past. But the problem is not everyone is like willing to communicate, so you have to make sure that you're at a point where your partner feels comfortable with you. I think it's normal to have like squabbles and like bickering, that's fine, but if it's at a point where it's getting toxic, then that's not good. How do I tell my crush I like them? I think it is cute to be like, hey, do you like somebody? And then they're like, maybe. And then they ask you back, and then you're like, well, I like you. That'd be adorable. Come on. It'd be a little bit cringe, but it'd be so cute. You should only confess if you know for sure that they like you back. Because when you confess to somebody, it puts pressure on them. Like, it might make you feel better, but you don't know how it'll make them feel, right? I think you just have to be blunt. You can drop like hints and flirt, but you just have to be blunt. And when you do tell them you like them, ask them out. You can't just say, ooh, I like you, and then run away. That's what I did like 2 out of the 4 times. And it didn't work. Ultimately, like, ask them out. Be like, hey, you want to, like, get a burger and a shake after school tomorrow? But yeah, just be blunt. Be clear. Don't be too vague about it. Tell them how you like them and ask them out easy.